Hey artist friends at home, this is Miss Black again with another at-home art tutorial, and today we're going to be learning about pop art and an artist called Andy Warhol. So we're going to look at his work, learn about his life, and sort of create a project that is similar to his style. So this is a picture of him long time ago. He was actually born in the 20s, the 1920s, not the 2020s, and he passed away in the 80s. So it was a long time ago, but he's still widely known across the art world. So we're going to talk about him, and then we're going to look at his art, and then I'm going to give you a tutorial on how to do a form of printmaking today, and you're going to create a pop art piece using that technique. So if we look at this website here, there's some information about him. Who is Andy Warhol? Andy Warhol is one of the most famous artists ever, from his soup to his hair. He is an art legend. So let's look at his hair there. He was well known for his hair. His hair was always kind of crazy. And this shows you what I'm talking about here. Who is he? Andy Warhol was a part of the pop art movement. He was born in Pennsylvania. His parents were from a part of Europe that's now Slovakia, so Eastern Europe. They moved to New York in the 1920s. So, let's see, born in 1928. His first job was illustrating adverts in fashion magazines. So he kind of was based around popular culture. And so you keep that in mind as we look on. These are some of his fashion illustrations right here. Well-known pieces of his artwork. Okay. What is he famous for? He's famous for exploring popular culture in his work. So that's what pop is, and pop art is popular. Popular culture is anything from Coca-Cola to pop stars to the clothes people like to wear. He made a print of Campbell's soup. So this is what they're talking about with soup to hair. Very famous piece of his. A popular brand of soup in the United States. He said he ate Campbell's soup, tomato soup every day for lunch for 20 years. He's probably living on a starving artist's wage for a while there. So what is pop art? Pop art is all about making art inspired by things from popular culture. And you can watch this short film if you'd like. It's on YouTube. Make sure that you click on this with a parent. Make sure that nothing else might pop up, because sometimes the internet can be a scary place. What was his style? He had a very particular personal style. He had a shock of white hair and was usually seen wearing a lot of black leather jackets and glasses or sunglasses. He dressed up and experimented with a lot of personal style, and he made a lot of self-portraits. So these are all pictures of him right here. He's a little bit in drag right there, doing a funny sort of three-quarters portrait. What type of art did he make? Warhol liked to use bright colors, so think about that for your project, and silk screening techniques, which is a printmaking technique. So you guys are going to do a form of printmaking with this project. He liked using screen printing to mass produce artworks based on photographs of celebrities, like this image of Marilyn Monroe, which is another very famous artwork of his. He was a movie star, or she was a movie star, rather, who was very famous in the 1950s. So another popular person that he's making art about. What is silk screen printing? Warhol liked making prints because it meant he could create multiples of the same image. Screen printing is a printing process that can create lots of artworks that look the same. Sometimes Warhol would switch colors around and present a group of prints with contrasting colors together. So we're going to talk about those contrasting colors, and you guys might want to use that for your piece. Where did he make art? Warhol hung out with a group of actors, models, and artists in New York City in the 60s. Warhol's studio in New York City was called The Factory. It was a reference to the mass-produced nature of his artworks. Yeah, so it was like a factory creating, sending off lots of artwork. He saw art as a product, the same as clothes you would wear and food you eat. What inspired him? He loved Los Angeles. So in California, beauty and plastic, things that were modern and changed quickly. If he was alive now, what do you think what would inspire him? I don't know, probably TikTok. That's what I would think. He'd probably be on TikTok, I think. All right, so we are going to take a look at a printmaking process. It's called monoprinting, so it's not silk screening. So what you're going to need for this project is a piece of paper. So let me go grab one of those. I should have been more prepared. But you're not going to be drawing on this yet, so set it aside. You're going to need a piece of plastic. Okay, so I just have like a sheet protector. Anything that you have at home. So maybe there's some like packaging that had plastic in it or something. As long as it's like a, not like, it's kind of like a harder piece of plastic, but not too hard. Okay, so we've got that. If you've got sheet protectors, they work great. Okay, sorry, there's something on there. It's creating a texture. Oh, it's on the table. Okay, so I have my piece of plastic. You're going to need a marker. Crayola is great. Right here I just have a not a ballpoint, but a felt tip pen. This works really well, which the reason why is because it's got this really fine tip. So if you've got one of those, even better. Just make sure that it's water-based. And you can find out if it's water-based by drawing on the plastic. And if you can take it off really easy with water, then it's water-based. So you got to make sure your marker is water-based, otherwise this won't work. Okay, and then you're going to get a picture, a photograph of somebody. It could be somebody you live with at home, it could be a celebrity you like, whoever you'd like to draw. Right here I have a portrait, a photograph of Maya Angelou, and so I'm kind of treating this project like popular culture right now is sort of African American culture and things like that, and giving them equality. So I'm kind of thinking about that with this project. Maya Angelou was a very influential person in the Black community. She was a poet, she was a writer, she was in a few movies even, and she was just very inspirational. And one of my most favorite books that she wrote is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So if you get the chance as you get a little bit older, definitely check that book out. It might actually be a book that you're required to read in high school. That's when I read it. So this is Maya Angelou. I'm going to draw or trace this, and it's going to create what's called a monoprint. When you have mono, so I'll just write this down. So mono equals 1, and then print is just a print. Oh, I need to. It's a little bit better. Okay, so we heard silk screening was a printmaking process that Andy Warhol was very famous for using, but his silk screenings meant like more than one. Okay, so you could make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these, but with this process we're going to use today, you can only make one. Okay, so that means you're going to be drawing multiple portraits with this process. So I'm just going to clean that off. Definitely water-based. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your picture, you're going to place it underneath your plastic, and then you're going to place, obviously, your plastic over it, and you're going to take your water-based marker, and you're going to trace the picture. So you're going to look for contrasting lines, and a contrasting line is where you see a line that's created by two separate colors. So like this on the side of her face here, contrasting the background. So there's a line right there. I'm going to just sketch over that. And it's just basically tracing this photograph. Okay, and you want to take your time, because if you rush it, it might not look as good. And you most likely have a smaller photograph than this, which is great. That's actually kind of what you need. I just wanted to show you on this big one so that you can see the process a little bit easier. I also did this, I printed this out smaller because I wanted to make multiple monoprints. So I drew this actually 4 times. And after I show you this process, I'm going to show you Andy Warhol's, one of his most famous ones, and it's the Marilyn Monroe picture that he did. He's very famous for. And I'll explain why we're doing more than one drawing with this. So I'm looking for all of those contrasting lines, tracing over them onto the plastic. Seeing some moles here. And you're going to draw the entire face. Got some eyelashes. There's some here as well. And I wouldn't get too hung up on the details, unless you want to, obviously. But the thing about it is we're going to be adding details on top of the prints that we make with this project. So if you want to add details later, you're going to be able to. But I'm just going to try and quickly draw this so you can see what it looks like when I print it. So this is the first thing you're going to need. You're going to need maybe another couple supplies in a little bit after we're finished drawing this. Or you're drawing your own. Just wherever you see lines, you're going to trace over it. See some in her lips right here. Okay, I think I got most of her face to her earring. These are pretty cool earrings. And if you don't have a black marker, that's okay. You can do it with other colors. The more colors, the better, honestly, because this is a pop art thing we're trying out. So, as you might have recognized as I was reading through that, Andy Warhol was very sort of bright color oriented with his work. So if you don't have black, don't sweat it. If you are using black, that's cool. We will be adding color later as well. So either way, it'll work out. Okay, let me just draw that. Wow, these are like really nice fingernails. She must have gotten a manicure that day when she got this photo taken. That would be the smart thing to do if you're getting some press photos. My nails have never looked this nice, ever. Okay, almost done. Just adding a few of these creases in her skin. Make it look as much like her as possible. And take your time. Take more time than I'm taking. I'm just sort of rushing through this so that you guys can see the process. Okay, she's got some knuckles, obviously. Okay, I think I'm ready. So I'll take this off. And you might see, oh, I forgot further iris. Whoops. Let me just get that real quick. There. So I have that, you can kind of see it. So I'm going to set that aside for just a minute. And then I'm going to take my paper. And I did mention you're going to need another supply. You're going to need some water and a paintbrush. If you have a foam brush, that works really well. What you're going to do is maybe squeeze out some of that water, because that might be too much water. But you're going to take your brush and you're going to wet your paper. And what you'll notice, or what you might notice, is that the water on the paper is shiny. Now, if you were to do the next part of the process while the paper is shiny, you would notice that the ink that you're pressing into it would start to spread out and what's called bleed, and we don't want that to happen. So, if your paper is shiny, then you need to wait till it's not shiny anymore. Okay, but your paper also needs to be damp. So if you touch it and it feels dry, then it's not going to work with that either. So you got to kind of get in between that sweet spot between shiny and damp. We don't want it to be shiny, we want it to be damp, we don't want it to be too dry. Okay, so you can just let it dry a little bit. I'm just kind of waving it, or you can get a paper towel and pick up some of that water, which speeds up that process a little bit. Okay, now I don't see very much shine at all. Well, there's a little bit there. I'll pick it up. Okay, you do not want to print it while it's shiny. Trust me, it'll look a little bit scary. Okay, so I think we're ready. So I'm going to take my ink drawing and I'm going to turn it around so the ink is going down. And I'm going to place it onto the wet or the wetted paper, and you're going to push the ink down wherever you drew it onto the paper, and this will make a monoprint. And it's a monoprint because every time you print it, you can only do it once, which means that you're going to need to draw it multiple times to get the effect that Andy Warhol got with his. Okay. You're also going to want to be really careful not to move the plastic as you're pressing it down or as you're pressing it. Okay. Because if you don't, if you make it move around and you're pressing the ink into it, you might get a double image, and that'll be a little bit hard to read as well. Okay, so I've taken that off, and now I have a monoprint. It's the mirror image of the original drawing, so keep that in mind as you draw it. You could print it the mirror image so you can get it the actual way it is, or like I just did, I just printed it. I monoprinted it just the way it is, so that's fine. Okay. So that is the process of monoprinting, or a process of monoprinting. And so we're going to use that process to create a pop art piece. So let me look up Andy Warhol's Marilyn Monroe piece. Marilyn. Okay, so I'm going to move the camera up. Here's that piece. Ooh, upside down. There we go. So this is his very famous Marilyn Monroe piece. Okay, a lot of people have redone it in their own style. Okay, but we're kind of doing a similar thing, but we're not doing Marilyn Monroe. We're choosing somebody else. If you want to do Marilyn Monroe, you're welcome to. If you know who she is. But I chose Maya Angelou. Okay, so here's the actual piece that he did. So we talked about also bright colors, bold colors, graphic style. So what I mean by graphic is, you know, you've got these blocks of color rather than you're not having too much of this like soft change in color. It's more of a block in color. Okay, so you're going to be adding this type of thing to your piece. I'm going to go back to this here. Okay, so what I did here is I printed my Angelou smaller, which is probably what you're going to want to do, so that you can do multiples of it. And I drew her 4 different times and put her onto this. So now it's very much like the Andy Warhol one. And you're going to see that it bows the paper. So after you printed it, if you don't like that feel, if you don't feel like you can work with it, then you can actually just place it inside a book or something like that underneath some weights, and it will actually flatten it out. So you can try that with this process. Okay, and then what you're going to do after that is you're going to think about Andy Warhol and his color choices, and you're going to start adding those types of things to your piece. But the first thing I'm actually going to do is outline this again. I'm just going to do it in the same ballpoint, or not ballpoint, but felt tip pen. Okay, and make sure that you do not do this when the paper is wet, because if you do this when the paper is wet, once again, it will bleed and spread, and it will also ruin your marker. So make sure you're not doing that. Keep those things in mind. And this will add a degree of that graphic style that I showed you with Andy Warhol's work. And I'm going to do this with all of them. But then I'm going to also choose bold colors to add to this piece. Another good thing you could do is actually kind of research the person that you are making an image of and choose colors based on that person. That might be a little bit more meaningful for you. But this adds a kind of degree of crispness that maybe the mono printing didn't achieve. And I'm going to do this with all of them, but I'm just going to show you on one because I want you guys to take your time and do this on your own. You might even be able to add some lights and shadows with this part of the process. Like this part of her nose was darker, so I'm going to color that in. It's like shaded, so the light was casting a shadow there. It's got some, I'll just move this over. So once again, do not do this immediately because it will ruin your marker and paper. Wait till it's completely dry, and these are completely dry. I did this right before and waited for them to dry before I started this video. Okay, my suggestion would be to choose people that are influential in society and bring about change. So I like the idea of creating like a social justice type piece for this project. You could choose people such as Martin Luther King Jr., people like that. Anybody you feel has created positive change in the world would be awesome. Maybe not so much negative change. But I guess kind of depends on the person in deciding what is positive and negative change. But like, I wouldn't choose anybody like Adolf Hitler or anything like that. So kind of steer clear of that. Don't choose anybody that would offend anyone. Or if you do choose somebody that might offend other people, just be considerate to who you show it to. Okay, so I finished that, and now I'm going to kind of think about colors that I can add to it. This type of style will be really great with marker, but you can also use crayon. I'll go ahead and use some crayons. And this color kind of just popped up at me, so I kind of want to use that. And I'm kind of looking at Andy Warhol's image right here to give me some ideas. What could I use? Maybe like a pink, because these kind of are complementary colors. So if you look at complementary colors, I've actually got something you can look at. So if you create a color wheel, complementary colors are on the opposite sides of the color wheel. So like orange and blue, red and green, purple and yellow. Those always pop really well. So actually, you know what, I need to look at this image to see the kind of changes that I'll need to put in there. So I'm choosing these two colors, and what I'm doing is thinking about light and dark. I'm going to use the darker one for the shadow and maybe the lighter one for the highlights. So for right here, maybe I'll color this green. And where it's like darkest dark, I'll probably just color that black. But I'm just talking about those subtle sort of changes in value. And I'm just going to do one, and I'll let you guys set you guys loose for the rest. But the main idea is you're choosing somebody who is well known or popular, for lack of a better term. You're going to choose colors that are bright, and you're going to make, for this project, it's four prints. So like for her hair, I'll probably just color that in black, maybe add some highlights with a white crayon or something, so white crayon shows up. Okay, I'll add some pink to the other parts now. You might do some mixing, color mixing, at those places that sort of go close to each other. Creates a darker color, which looks quite nice. Got some highlights over here. Also got some shadows though. So I'll get those shadows first. And for the lightest lights, I'll probably go in with some white crayon. So this is a really fun project, but it's also can be very meaningful. My white crayon for some of those highlights. You can actually do a whole lot more than you realize with crayons, as I've discovered in my teaching. Lighten some of those up. Even. Okay. I'll just color these in all the way. Then I'll take a black crayon, color in her hair. Be tasteful in the way that you color them. Don't do it in a mocking way, because Andy Warhol never did this to mock Marilyn Monroe. He loved Marilyn Monroe. So choose somebody that you like, somebody that you would not want to mock. Okay, and I would continue this type of thing throughout the hands and the clothing. Color that pink. Some of her hands pink. And I feel like the rest is going to be that greenish color. Maybe even some black in there. I'll leave I'll leave the nails white, because those are very, very light. And the ring. Okay, and the rest I'd probably just be coloring, well, I'll color this in green. And everything else is going to be black. Okay, and one other thing you need to know about is the background color. The background color is never white with this project. You're going to choose something very bold, maybe even more bold than the colors you've chosen for your duo color. So you're going to choose two colors for the base, and then in the background you choose something completely different that's really bright and bold. So I'll do orange for this one. Something very contrasty. Just move this out of the way. Now you could do this by just printing them off, but I think this is a whole lot more rich because you invest more time in it. Okay, so there's one. Oh, I forgot the eyebrows. Black. Okay, anything else that you might want to add, like maybe I want to add more black in the lips. And there's a lot of shadow there. Maybe some more shadow here. But yeah, so that's one. I'll do the other three and then I'll post a picture of it when I'm done. So have fun with this. Please post pictures of this when you're done. You know what? I feel like she has probably way more hair than I gave her. Now it's done. Okay, so can't wait to see what you do. Send me a picture when you're done. Have your folks help you with that. Thanks, you guys.